Welcome to Page One, the show for writers with the reader in mind. Here's your host, Zita Christian.
Hi everyone, welcome to Page One. I'm Zita Christian. Those of you who watch the show regularly will remember Liz Aylshire, who did a wonderful segment on Page One called Wisdom for the Weekend Writer. Liz Aylshire died in October of 2008. Liz, by profession, was a writer, an accountant, a journalist. She had hundreds of newspaper articles published and quite a few nonfiction books. Tonight, we're going to talk about the last book she wrote. Excuse me, it's called 101 Ways You Can Help, How to Offer Comfort and Support to Those Who Are Grieving. Liz sold this idea to the publisher Source Books in February of 2008. On Mother's Day weekend of 2008, Liz suffered the first of several heart attacks. And for a while, the prognosis was optimistic, but by mid-July, it was clear that Liz was not going to recover. And yet, the book, 101 Ways You Can Help, was published in May of 2009. So how, might you ask, did that happen since Liz was not able to finish the book? Well, there were 6 writers, I'm one of them, who gathered together to finish the book for her. And that's the story you're going to hear about tonight. Actually, this particular Page One is the first of 2 parts. So I'm going to introduce you first to 2 of the other writers who helped to finish 101 Ways You Can Help. To my right, Paula Chaffee, Scardamalia from New York. Paula, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you for asking me.
And Kathleen Barach from Connecticut, a good friend of Liz. Kathy, thank you for being here with us tonight also. This is a joyous show to do and also a sad show, a very bittersweet show to do. Paula, I want to start by asking you to talk about that day when you encouraged Liz to get up the courage to go talk with that editor at Source Books. Tell us about that.
Well, she and I had been invited to attend the New Jersey Romance Writers Conference by our good friend Anne, who will be on the second part of the program. Mm-hmm. And so we went down. She went not because she was a romance writer, but because she wanted to schmooze with some of the organizers to see if they would be interested in having her come speak at a future conference. Yes. So we were registering, and we finished registering, and they had a table off to the side where they were doing sign-ups for agent and editor sessions where you could pitch a book idea. And I was looking to pitch one of my own fiction book ideas, and I noticed that Source Books had some openings. And I knew from having looked at their information prior to the conference that they did nonfiction as well. So I went over to Liz, who was standing off to the side waiting for me. I said, why don't you pitch your book idea to Source Books? Why don't you make an appointment and meet with them? And she went, they're not here to listen to nonfiction. They're here for, I said, what can it hurt? Why not give it a try? Why not do it? So, because I nudged her, and she was in a good space and frame of mind at that time, she decided, oh, why not? So she signed up. And I'll never forget the day she had the appointment. She dressed in her purple suit.
Yes.
She dressed in her big, sparkly, bangly earrings, had on a couple of her big rings. She says, the old Liz is back, you know? And she was ready to go for that interview, and she just looked so happy and lovely and ready to do her thing. And she went to her meeting, and I had a meeting after her, so I was standing in line waiting. And when she came out of that meeting, she had her big grin on. It was just, and when I talked to her afterwards, they asked to see the manuscript. So it was really exciting.
Well, the idea of writing a book about how to help someone who is grieving is, well, it's unusual.
It's unusual, and it was something that the publisher knew would appeal to a large audience.
Yes. Now, Kathy, you knew Liz longer than any of us. I mean, your friendship with Liz goes back a long time. And I know those of us who helped finish her book and got to know Liz so well, we know why she wanted to write the book. But would you give us a little background about what was the incident in Liz's life that was the impetus for the book?
This book really came out of her son Nathan's death. Nathan was 16. He died of bone cancer. It was a terrible, long ordeal. And at the time, Liz was in a very fragile place anyway, and it just hit her like a steamroller. And she was very, very angry at what so many people said to her. The things that they said in trying to comfort her or trying to say nice things or helpful things were in fact very hurtful to Liz. And in talking about it, we realized that those are the things that people say very often to someone who is grieving. They don't know what to say that really helps. And that was really the incident. And for 16 years, well, not quite, almost 16 years. Nathan was 16 when he died. And for probably 14 or 15 years after that, before she wrote the book, she talked about it, and she had it going in her head. I mean, I really watched her write this book for probably 15 years. Yeah. It was that important to her, and when it came out, when she finally got it on paper, it was just wonderful. I mean, it was just all the things that she had hoped that people would say to her that she would find comforting.
I remember one time she told me that she had a girlfriend, in fact there were two, who on two separate occasions saw her in the grocery store, where it was a small town where everyone shopped, and they caught a glimpse of her, and she, you see somebody who sees you, and they turned away. They ducked down another aisle in the grocery store. And she knew it was because they simply didn't know how to communicate with her when faced with that terrible grief. Not knowing what to say, they turned away and didn't say anything. So she said, obviously it was very painful for her. And I said, well, when was it that these friends came back into your life? And she said they never did. They never did. So the friendships were lost because of that, and I know that's another reason she wanted to write this book. Kathleen, let me stay with you for another minute, excuse me, because as I mentioned, you did know Liz longer than all of us. How would you describe Liz, and how do you think Liz would describe herself?
Well, I would describe Liz as a very brave, very motivated person. I mean, she loved writing. She always had that in her sights as her goal. She was a very self-deprecating person. She did not think she was as wonderful as everybody else thought she was. Yeah. After Nathan died, and after some time went on, my family kind of adopted Liz as part of our family. And it really took her a long, long time to get comfortable enough where she could confide in people, where she could talk comfortably with people. She just didn't think that that she had anything to offer the world, that she had anything that was of value. She really didn't see herself as the wonderful person that we all saw.
I know one of the things that struck me when I went into Liz's apartment for the first time was the fact that there were no mirrors, other than the mirror that was on the medicine cabinet in the bathroom, and she had no control over that. And I asked her, I said, well, there was nothing in the bedroom, no mirrors. And she just very point blank said, I don't like the answer to the question, mirror, mirror on the wall. And that was it. Finished, done, no mirrors. No, you're right. She simply couldn't see what the rest of us saw. No. I want to skip forward here a little bit in this story to that Mother's Day weekend in 2008. Liz's first deadline for the book was May 31st, 2008. But Mother's Day weekend of that year, she had the first of several heart attacks. And another one the following week, and then, as I mentioned earlier, optimism ruled for a while and then faded. And then by the middle of July, it was pretty clear that whether or not she recovered, if she did recover, it was going to be a long, long, long time. What was definitely true was that she was not going to be able to make her second deadline, which the source books had given her another 2 months, and she had until July 31st to finish the book. So I remember on July 16th, in fact, I have the email in a file at home. Liz and I talked, and it was evident that she was going to need help getting the book finished. She had outlined it. She had about 2/3 finished, and the rest of the book was fully outlined but not written, and some of the writing required some interviews and a lot of research. So I went home that night and I emailed Kathleen, I emailed you, Paula, I emailed you, I emailed Marcia Brown, Judy Hughey, and Ann Fraser-Walrod. And in fact, I have a portion of the email here. I said, Liz and I had a long talk tonight. Even if she qualified, she does not want a heart transplant. Her reasoning is something I'll explain another time. The immediate implication is her manuscript, 101 Ways You Can Help. There's no way she can meet the July 31st deadline unless we help. I know I'm being presumptive. So if you can't participate or would just rather not, let me know. But ever the optimist, here are the sections where help is needed, and here are the names where I've slotted each of you. Well, it was no surprise. Within 24 hours, the 5 of you all responded with an enthusiastic, yes, absolutely, just tell me what you want me to do. At that point, the doctors had given Liz anywhere from 6 months to a few days. It was a precarious situation, so we worked fast. We worked very, very fast. And I remember asking, well, Paula, you had actually gone to Sourcebooks and said, you know, we're finishing this book for Liz, and will you give us a couple days, just a couple days? And that was a whole long process, but they agreed, and we met that deadline. Kathy, because you've got the book there in your hand, would you take a look at the table of contents? Talk to us a little bit about how the information in the book is organized, and then read a few tips, maybe from chapters 4 and 5 or so.
Liz was very specific about how she wanted to organize the book. It's organized the basic do's, the basic don'ts, when the bereaved is your best friend, when they're a coworker. It's organized so that people can utilize different sections depending on what it is, what situation they're in.
Yeah, the level of relationship.
Right, right. Mm-hmm. Things like managers, educate your staff about grief and bereavement. Offer to be the workplace newscaster. That's for bereaved is your coworker. If it's your neighbor, visit once a week. Roll up your sleeves and go to work on outdoor home maintenance. Obviously, if you're not good at that, that's probably not one that you want to get involved with. But another one that I love is shut up and listen to children. I think one of the things we don't do enough is listen to what the kids are saying, because they grieve too. They grieve in a different way. Buy a subtle gift. Buy an unsubtle gift. Liz had a great reason for that, and I wish I could remember what it was, because it was really funny at the time. Donate a vacation day to coworkers.
What about go to the chapter if you're very close, if you're a close personal friend or family member, because I remember the idea behind that was, if you really know someone really well, you're going to be comfortable asking about their financial situation. You're going to be comfortable walking in and looking in the refrigerator and saying, okay, are you eating? You know, and even checking the laundry. Because when you're close enough to someone, as we all are, well, we wouldn't hesitate to do that. So give us a few tips from that section.
Things like be very pushy. Go ahead, open the refrigerator and look. I love this one, do the eulogy. When my mother died, we asked Liz to do the eulogy. She did this with probably a couple hours notice at night for the funeral the next day. And you know, when we asked, I could see that she was her brain started going, and probably as a writer she had it a little easier than some people did. But it was still a very, very big task for someone, and she took it on, and it was wonderful. I mean, she did a great job. Things like suggesting a support group. You have to be kind of close with a person to suggest a support group.
And she even talks in there about go with them.
Yes.
Don't just
yes.
leave it up to them. Just go.
Yep.
Say, I'm
Yep.
going to pick you up and we're going to go.
Yep.
Yeah, she had great practical
did.
tips.
Yep.
I'm going to leave that just for a minute, Paula. I want to ask you. You were the matrix for all of this. So there are 5 other writers. There were 6 of us all together who were finishing the book. Liz was number 7, or actually she was number 1, and we were 2 through 7. So we all had our assignments, and we had a very short time limit, and we chose you to be the matrix, and we just emailed our information to you in chunks and attachments and revisions and phone calls. Talk to us about the assembly, and talk to us specifically about, well, I know it had to be very hard to put together, but talk to us about the fact that we maintained Liz's voice.
Well, this was, it was an interesting process from those 2 standpoints. Putting it together, that was arduous in itself, because it was a process of continuing to go through over and over and over again the tips and the things she had to say and her experiences. So that was painful. On the other hand, it was a delight to work with women who knew Liz well enough and who were accomplished enough writers to be able to speak in her voice.
Yes.
So to keep that same dry, acerbic wit, to understand how to keep the writing clear and crisp, all of that, that was part of the fun part of it, because most of us got that with very little editing. So that was fun. But I felt that I was kind of doing what she liked to do, which was quilt. Quilting each of the pieces together to make this final book for her. So it was a lovely process.
Yes, it was, and we all appreciated the fact that you took on that particular task. Now, I know when we approached Sourcebooks, now I had spoken with Shana Drays, Liz's editor, to let her know that Liz had had the heart attack, so that Shana would know that she wasn't able to just pick up the phone and talk to Liz. Liz was not, for a long time, not able to even talk. So when we said to her, we proposed to finish this book, I remember it was a good, almost a week, or a little longer maybe.
Actually, it was a little longer,
before she was able to get back to us, because those of you who are not in publishing, might not realize it is a very difficult thing to maybe have one other writer involved, but certainly not to have 6 other writers
a team like
involved.
That's
in finishing
very
the
risky.
book, especially this late in the game. Liz had already. There was a lot of things that were already in motion with the production. So I know that there was the marketing department to talk with, but my guess is they also had to talk with their legal department. I can only imagine. So I know that
marketing, all of that,
everybody.
Yeah, right.
So
everybody had to be on board.
Yes, and I sent an email to Sourcebook saying, here are short bios of all 6 of us, so that they could see that we were all published authors and we all had writing credentials, and certainly we were all dear friends of Liz. And also a statement that we didn't expect anything from this. We just wanted to see the book finished. You see, Liz had a lot of books published, but this book was her tribute to Nathan. This wasn't just another book. This was a very special book. So on August 6th, Shana Drays, who was the editor Liz was dealing with, sent me an email, because by this point we had sent everything to her. I also sent her a proposed foreword that would explain to readers what happened, because even at that point we didn't know what the outcome was going to be. So Shana sent this email back. She said, your foreword has me in tears. The generosity and kindness of the 6 of you is remarkable, and I'm so proud to be associated with this project. Well, I mean, Sourcebooks holds a place in my heart forever, because they let us finish this book. So Paula, when everything was finally finished and Sourcebooks accepted it, how did it feel? What was the conversation like when you called Liz to tell her the book is finished, or accepted? I mean, it wasn't actually produced yet.
Right. Well, she was very delighted. She knew that because she knows the process so well, she knew that getting that first draft in was a big piece, but it was only the beginning of a journey, because she knew that we would be looking at edits too, going back over that and so forth. And I'm sure it was a relief for her too, because she was so focused on she needed to stay focused on maintaining strength and getting strong enough to, you know, look forward to that possible transplant and so forth, that she was just very relieved and very grateful.
Speaking of edits, there came that weekend in the middle of August when we all went up to Judy Hughey's house on the Cape, Judy being another one of the 6 of us who helped to finish Liz's book. And we had, by arrangement, because it was something Liz wanted to do, Liz called us at Judy's house that day. And one by one, she asked each of us what had we learned by working on this project, by finishing her book. So, Kathy, how did you answer that question? And if you were asked it today, would your answer be the same?
I don't know if it would be the same. I told Liz, first of all, I was surprised that she had a specific order that she asked for us each in. Mm-hmm. And I told her that the thing that was most amazing to me, I had learned so much about writing from listening to all of these very talented women talk about what they were going to do or what we needed to do for Liz's book. I told her that she had an amazing group of friends, and she laughed and she said, "Of course, I know that." Mm-hmm. And she was just so pleased. I mean, we talked a little bit. I told her how happy I was that this was going to be a reality because of having known Nathan and how much she had gone through around the time of his death and in between.
Well, as you said, you listened to her write it for years.
For years.
And now it was
exactly.
actually
yes, and
reality.
now it was on paper. And she was just so happy and so pleased. She was relieved, and she just had this sense of calm. And I told her that. I said, you feel so calm about this. And she said, well, anything that happens now is okay. Which kind of made me feel good about the whole thing too. But
Sure.
But I told her how wonderful it was to work with a group of women who worked well together, who could bounce ideas off of each other, and not get lost in any kind of pettiness or any kind of hassles over things. I mean, there was a real dialogue. It was a wonderful experience.
Paula, what about you? What do you remember Liz asking you? You know, what did you learn? And do you remember what you told her? And
I remember her asking, I vaguely remember talking about, I think one of the things that at that time was important for me was just learning the whole editing process. I mean, having to pull everybody together, I'd never had to do that before. And so it gave me a new appreciation for the publishing process and the writing process. And I think I also remember telling her that I had always looked forward to the excitement of submitting a book to an editor, but I had always hoped it would be mine first.
Sure. Oh,
but
sure.
I was grateful to be part of that project.
Yeah. Well, I know for me, I thought that working with the subject matter in the book, I anticipated that it would bring up issues surrounding my father's death, because he had died just a few years earlier. What surprised me was it brought up the issues surrounding my mother's death. My mother had died in 1963, and I remember at the time thinking, well, I survived. I was 15, I had a sister 12, a sister 10. We survived, end of story. Not the end of story. Mm-hmm. I realized that in working on Liz's book, and that was painful, but it was a very, very good lesson. Now, I have another question here I want to ask. Paula, for you, I know it was important for Liz that we were all members of the International Women's Writing Guild. Why do you think that was so important to her?
I think it was important for a number of reasons. First of all, you know, belonging to the Guild means that as women, you recognize the value of writing in your life. And if you understand the value of writing, which means that you understand the value of telling your story, then you also, because we all understand that, we all connect on that level. It's not about how much you've published, how big your name is, how much money you have, or anything else. It's about telling your story from your heart. And so for all of us to be part of the Guild meant that we would all be working on her story from our heart for her.
That's a beautiful piece. I also want to just mention that when it comes to the International Women's Writing Guild, when there was a moment of optimism, and we thought that Liz actually might come home from the hospital for a while. She was in a cardiac rehab for a while, and we thought she might come home, but she would require someone with her 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I contacted members of the International Women's Writing Guild, and I said, here's the situation. Now, we'd all gathered together for a week every summer at the conference, which is held up at Skidmore College. Liz taught. You teach there, I teach there. Three of the other writers who finished the book also teach there. And Liz had been going for over 20 years, every summer or almost every summer for a week. And I totally forgot what I was going to say about how wonderful that something about that conference. And I'm sure it'll come back to me.
You were going to talk about when you asked everybody to help.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yes, when I asked everybody to help, it really was. I sent the word out. I said, we need someone with Liz 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And people wrote in and said, I can take a vacation day. I have some extra time. I can come on weekends. I can come during the week. I can come and stay nearby and do morning shifts. It was amazing.
And gave money.
And some people gave money so that we could hire a professional nurse to come in for those times when we couldn't have someone. And then there's a young couple you know well, who they were ready.
Niece.
Your niece.
Yeah,
right. And their names?
Mike and Marie Testa.
Mike and Marie Testa. They
Two great
offered
kids.
They're really nice kids. And I say kids, but they're
Right,
married.
right.
But they were opening up their home. They were changing the downstairs dining room into a bedroom. And I think all of this goes to show what not just an important person, but how much Liz was loved. I'll also say, and we're just about out of time, but I did want to mention that, many times when we've told this story to people, one of the things that they often comment is, wow, Liz was so lucky to have the 6 of you to finish this book. Well, in a way, yes, she was, but far more importantly, think about this. How many people do you know, and I hope you count yourself among them, who you have a friend who is so important to you that you would do something like this for that person? That's who Liz was to us. And on that loving note, Paula, Chaffee, Scardamalia, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Kathleen Barach, thank you too for being with us and talking about this portion of the story. And when we come to the second part of this Page One's show, you'll meet some of the other writers who helped to finish Liz's book. So I also want to say a thank you to my crew. And finally to you in the viewing audience, please remember the words of Ursula Le Guin. She said, there have been civilizations that did not use the wheel, but there have been no civilizations that did not tell stories. So please find your story, find a way to tell it, and join us again next time. Thank you.
Food for the crew and guests was provided by Manchester Grill of Manchester, Connecticut, and Angelo's Restaurant of Glastonbury, Connecticut. Be sure to send your writing questions and your comments on the book club selection to Zita at Page 1, P.O. Box 1515, Manchester, Connecticut, 06045-1515, or send an email to Zita at page1tv.com.